My name is Ananya. I am 26 years old, and for 1 year of my life, I carried a secret that I thought would destroy my family. I want to tell you about it, not because it is easy to tell, but because the ending, the real ending, taught me something about judgment, about love, and about how quickly we can be completely wrong about the people we think we know best. Stay with me until the end, because I promise you, you will not see this coming. It started on an ordinary Thursday evening. I was leaving my office early. Traffic was unusually light. I decided to stop at a small cafe near my house, the kind of place I rarely visited, tucked behind the main market, quiet and half-empty most evenings. I walked in to get a coffee, and there in the corner, sitting across from a woman I had never seen before, was my father. My father, who left for his evening walk every single day at 6 o'clock. My father, who came home every night at 7:30, smelling faintly of the outside air, tired but content. My father, who had been married to my mother for 29 years. He was holding this woman's hand across the table. I stood frozen near the entrance. The woman looked younger than my mother, maybe in her early 30s. She was crying softly, and my father was speaking to her gently, his thumb moving in small circles over her hand. A gesture of comfort I had seen him give my mother 1,000 times over the years. I did not go inside. I turned around and walked out before either of them could see me. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, my hand shaking on the steering wheel, my mind refusing to accept what my eyes had just shown me. My father. An affair. It could not be true. But I had seen it with my own eyes. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying the image over and over. The way he held her hand. The way he leaned toward her. The soft, private way he spoke. A way I realized, with a sick feeling in my stomach, that I had never actually seen him speak to my mother in years. Not like that. Not with that kind of tender urgency. When had that gentleness disappeared from his marriage? Had it moved somewhere else? To her? I thought about my mother sleeping in the next room, completely unaware. 29 years of marriage. 2 children, a whole life built together. And she had no idea that on ordinary Thursday evenings, her husband was somewhere else, holding someone else's hand. I made a decision that night. I would find out the truth before I said anything to anyone. I owed my mother that much. To know for certain before I broke her heart with an accusation. For the next 3 weeks I watched. I am not proud of this. I want to say that clearly. I followed my own father like he was a stranger, like he was a suspect in some crime, because in my mind, he was. Every Tuesday and Thursday without fail, he went to that same cafe. Every time, the same woman was waiting. Sometimes they talked for a long time. Sometimes she cried. Once, I saw him hand her an envelope. Thick, the kind that holds money. My chest tightened every single time. I started imagining the worst version of the story. He was paying her. He was supporting a second life. Maybe there were children involved. Maybe this had been going on for years, decades even. Hidden so carefully behind his reliable, boring, trustworthy routine. I began pulling away from him at home. I answered his questions in short sentences. I stopped sitting with him during his evening tea, something we had done together my whole life. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "Ananya," he said one evening, "is everything all right? You seem far away lately." I looked at him. This man I thought I knew completely.
"I am fine, Papa," I lied. "Just tired from work." He looked at me for a long moment, like he wanted to say something else. Then he simply nodded and let it go.
The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening in October. I followed him again. The cafe. The same woman. This time, they were arguing, quietly, but clearly upset. She kept shaking her head. He kept reaching for her hands and she kept pulling them away. I could not watch anymore. I walked straight into the cafe. My father looked up, shocked to see me standing there, soaked slightly from the rain. My face, I am sure, showing every ounce of the anger and hurt I had been carrying for 3 weeks. "Ananya," he said, standing up quickly. "What are you doing here?" "I think the question is, what are you doing here, Papa?" I said. My voice was shaking. For 3 weeks. Every Tuesday. Every Thursday. This same cafe. This same woman. The woman across the table looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. "Ananya, please," my father said, his voice low. "Sit down. Let me explain." "Explain what?" I said, my voice rising now, tears coming despite my effort to stop them. "Explain why you have been lying to Mama for years? Explain the money you have been giving her? Explain why you hold her hand the way you used to hold Mama's?" My father's face went pale. The woman across the table. She started crying harder now, covering her face with her hands. "Ananya," my father said quietly, "this is not what you think." "That is exactly what everyone says," I said bitterly. "Sit down," he said again, firmer this time. "Please. Just sit down. And let me tell you the truth. All of it." I sat down slowly, my whole body tense, ready for him to confirm everything I had already convinced myself was true. He looked at the woman. She nodded slightly, wiping her eyes, giving him some silent permission. "Ananya," my father said, "this is Mira." I stared at him, waiting. "Mira is my daughter." The words did not make sense at first. I actually laughed, a short, confused, disbelieving sound. "What are you talking about? I am your daughter. Ria is your daughter. There is no before your mother," he said quietly. "Before I met her. I was married once before, very briefly, when I was 23 years old. It ended badly. very badly. Her mother left, took the baby, and disappeared from my life completely. I did not even know if the child had survived. I searched for years, quietly, without telling anyone, because it was a part of my life I was deeply ashamed of. A mistake I made when I was young and reckless. I sat completely still. For months ago, he continued, Mira found me. Through an old friend, through some documents, through a long search of her own. She had grown up not knowing her father at all. Her mother had passed away 2 years ago, and going through her mother's things, she found my name. She wanted to know who I was, why I left. I looked at Mira, really looked at her for the first time, and now that I was looking properly, not through the fog of suspicion, I could see it. The shape of her eyes, the exact same shape as my father's, as my own. I did not leave, my father said, his voice breaking now. Her mother left me, took her away before I even knew she was pregnant with certainty, before I had a chance to be a father. I have spent 30 years wondering if I had a child somewhere in this world. And 4 months ago, she walked into my life. Mira spoke for the first time, her voice trembling. I was so angry with him at first, she said. I blamed him for everything, for growing up without a father, for every hard year my mother and I struggled through alone. That is why I cry so much when we meet. It still hurts. It probably always will a little. The money, my father said, looking at me now, is not for an affair, Ananya. It is help. She lost her job recently. She has a small son, my grandson, who I have not even met yet because I was too afraid of how this would all unfold. I was helping her while she gets back on her feet, and I was too afraid, too ashamed of my own past, to tell your mother, to tell you and Riya, because I did not know how to explain a mistake I made before your mother even existed in my life, without it looking exactly like what you assume today. I sat in that cafe, completely undone. Everything I had believed for 3 weeks, the affair, the betrayal, the secret life, collapsed in an instant, replaced by something far more complicated and, somehow, far sadder. My father was not betraying my mother. He was carrying a 30-year-old wound, a hidden grief, a daughter he never knew existed until 4 months ago, and he had been too frightened of our judgment, too ashamed of a mistake from his youth, to bring it into the light. Why didn't you just tell us? I asked quietly. He looked down at his hands. Because I was afraid you would see me differently. Afraid your mother would think I had been dishonest with her about my past. Afraid this good, stable, ordinary life we built together would suddenly feel like a lie, even though it never was. It feels like exactly that right now, I said honestly. Not because of Mira, but because you hid her. For 4 months, you hid your own daughter from your family, Papa. That is the part that hurts. He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes now. You are right, he said. I was wrong to hide it. I was protecting my own fear, not protecting anyone else. I am sorry, Ananya. We went home together that night. All three of us. My mother was in the kitchen when we walked in. She looked at us, at my father's tear-stained face, at me standing beside a stranger she had never seen before, and she knew immediately that something significant had happened. What is going on? She asked, her voice careful. My father took a breath. Sit down, he said gently. There is something I should have told you a long time ago. I will not pretend the conversation that followed was easy. My mother cried. She felt betrayed too. Not by an affair, but by 30 years of silence about a part of my father's life she had never fully known. There was hurt. There was anger. There were hard questions that took weeks, not hours, to work through. But there was also something else. A grandson none of us had known about, who would eventually come to our house for the first time, shy and unsure, clutching a small toy car. A sister I never knew I had, who slowly, carefully, began learning what it meant to actually have a family. A father who, for the first time in 30 years, stopped carrying a secret alone. It has been 8 months now. Mira comes for dinner most Sundays. Her son calls my father Nana now, and the sound of it, the first time I heard it, made my father cry in a way I had never seen before. Not from shame this time, but from something that looked almost like relief. My mother and Mira are still finding their way with each other. It is not simple. It may never be completely simple, but it is honest now. And honest, even when it is difficult, is so much better than the alternative. I think about those 3 weeks often. The weeks I spent following my own father, convinced I was uncovering an affair, convinced I understood the whole story just from watching from a distance. I was so certain, and I was so completely wrong. I think about this often now, in every part of my life. How easy it is to build an entire story in our minds from just a few pieces of what we see. How quickly suspicion turns into certainty. How much pain we can cause ourselves and others by believing we understand a situation we have not actually asked about. If I had simply walked into that cafe on the very first day and asked, instead of following, watching, judging from the shadows for 3 weeks, I could have saved myself and my father so much unnecessary pain. So here is what I want to leave you with. The next time you see something that looks like betrayal, pause before you build the entire story in your mind. Ask, even if the truth is hard, even if the truth is complicated, because most of the time, the real story is not what we assume from the outside. And sometimes, the real story is far more heartbreaking and far more beautiful than the one we were so certain we understood.